Damn, that's a bombshell. I mean, that's exactly what this Historia Hispana video is going to be.
In the 1970s, the world was measured in kilotons. Real power didn't sit on thrones or in parliaments, but at the tip of a nuclear missile. It was the most exclusive and feared club in history, and its members, the United States, the Soviet Union, China, France, and the United Kingdom, set the rules for the planet. Whoever had the bomb had the final say. Those who didn't could only talk, those who obeyed. And in a corner of southern Europe, a proud, wounded, and isolated nation refused to be just a piece on their board. Spain, governed by Franco, who felt the icy breath of death on his neck, knew it was vulnerable. Francisco Franco was not only afraid for his life, he was afraid for his legacy. He saw how his regime, his personal construction of almost 40 years, was facing an uncertain future, surrounded by enemies outside and tensions within. He needed a life insurance not for himself, but for Spain. A definitive policy that no one could break. A weapon that would shout to the world that Spain would never kneel again. And then came the humiliation that set everything on fire. November 1975. Spanish Sahara. Morocco, with Hassan II and the complicit silence of Washington, launches the Green March. It's not a military invasion, it's a death sentence. The Spanish army, one of the oldest and proudest in Europe, receives the order not to act.
We were ordered not to respond, not to speak, not to defend, just to watch and pretend it wasn't the end.
The feeling in Madrid is one of abandonment, of a brutal betrayal by its supposed ally, the United States. Admiral Carrero Blanco, Franco's right-hand man, had already warned about it before he was assassinated. Without its own weapons, Spain will be nothing more than an 8th magnitude star. The Sahara crisis confirmed it in the most painful way. Spain was alone. In Franco's last days, in the silences of a palace that smelled of wax and the end of an era, the order was given. A plan that had been in the making in absolute secrecy since the early 1960s was urgently activated. Its code name said it all. It wasn't a technical or military name. It was a legendary name, one of blood and sand. They called it Project Islero. Islero. Like the 500-kilo Mura bull that killed Manolete in the Linares bull ring. The bull that finished off a national symbol. The name was a statement of intent. What they were about to create was a lethal, unpredictable force with tragic consequences and devastating power. A weapon not meant to be used, but whose very existence would change everything. The project had 3 pillars. The brain was the Nuclear Energy Board, a leading research center full of the best scientists in the country. The political soul had been Admiral Carrero Blanco, its main driving force until an ETA bomb blew him up.
They told us it was just deterrence, but we knew that, if necessary, we could finish what we started.
And the architect, the one who would carry it out, was a silent genius, the physicist Guillermo Velarde, a man who did not seek glory but the survival of his country, a scientist willing to calculate the apocalypse on a blackboard if that would guarantee that no one would ever humiliate Spain again. He would be our Oppenheimer. The plan was bold but feasible, to build a plutonium bomb in just a few years. Spain had the reactors to produce it, Zorita and above all Vandellos. It had the technology, and now it had the unbreakable will born from the wound. The countdown had begun in the back rooms of power. A state conspiracy for Spain to enter, through the back door, the atomic club. But in the nuclear era, there are no secrets, only a limited amount of time before being discovered. And on the other side of the ocean, the CIA had already started to listen closely. Franco's forbidden dream didn't take shape in a military bunker, nor in a secret base in the mountains. It was born here, in broad daylight in the heart of Madrid. The Nuclear Energy Board. To the world, it was a civilian research center, a place of white lab coats, science, and progress. But in its most protected laboratories and offices, a silent war was being waged against time. Here, Guillermo Velarde's team worked tirelessly. Physicists, engineers, chemists, the scientific elite of Spain, united by an oath of secrecy. But the mastermind behind the operation was not in Madrid. The true heart of the beast beat 500 kilometers away on the coast of Tarragona. The Vandellos 1 power plant. It wasn't just any power plant. Unlike the others, which used American technology, this one was French. A gas graphite reactor, a design that had a fundamental strategic advantage. It allowed the spent fuel to be removed without having to shut down the reactor. And from that fuel, from that lethal waste, it could be reprocessed to obtain the soul of the bomb, weapons-grade plutonium. It was the perfect route, the back door to the atomic club, and Spain had the key. And there, locked away with his blackboards and his silences, he was. Guillermo Velarde, the architect of nuclear fire. For months, he carried out the most complex and dangerous calculations of his life. He wasn't calculating the structure of a bridge nor the Earth's orbit, a satellite. He was calculating the exact geometry of an atomic explosion, and his numbers were terrifyingly clear. The bomb was possible. Necessary material, 6 kilograms of plutonium per bomb. Design? Implosion sphere, the same technology used in Nagasaki. Estimated yield, 20 kilotons. A force capable of wiping an entire city off the map. The plan wasn't to build a single symbolic device. It was to produce an initial series of 3 bombs, 3 silent guardians for the sovereignty of Spain. Velarde and his team lived a double life. To their families, they were civil servants. To the international community, peaceful scientists. In reality, they were conspirators. Every calculation, every report, every meeting was an act of defiance. One more step on a path of no return. Finally, the work was done. Velarde gathered his conclusions in an ultra-secret report. Physics was mastered. The engineering was worked out. The raw material was piling up. He presented his findings to the highest levels of the state. His message was sober and devastating. We can do it. At that moment, the bomb stopped being a fantasy. It became a project with deadlines, into an industrial reality about to be born. In Madrid, within a very small circle, there was a mix of euphoria, fear, and pride in the air. They had done it. But they didn't know that their secrets, whispered in soundproof offices, had already crossed the Atlantic and were echoing like thunder through the halls of Langley, Virginia. A detailed report arrives on the CIA director's desk, and from there to the Oval Office. Its title is brief and alarming: the Spanish nuclear program. Washington goes on red alert. In Washington, the Islero report hit like a silent bomb. The CIA, through its espionage network and monitoring of Spanish power plants, had confirmed everything. The operation, codenamed Spinner, left no room for doubt. A nation in southern Europe, governed until months ago by Francisco Franco, and now in a fragile and unpredictable transition, was about to acquire a nuclear weapon. It was the worst-case scenario. An atomic Spain, outside of NATO's control, could destabilize the entire Mediterranean. It could use it to pressure Gibraltar. It could suffer a coup d'etat, and the weapon could fall into the hands of the military during an unstable period. Or worse, he could sell the technology to other countries. For the United States, the Islero project was not a matter of Spanish sovereignty. It was a direct threat to global security. And they were not going to allow it. But Kissinger's America did not act with direct threats or a public ultimatum. That would have been a mistake. It would have fueled Spanish pride. His strategy was much more subtle, colder, and more lethal. It was a checkmate in 2 moves, a slow and silent suffocation. The first move was technological. Most of the Spanish nuclear power plants, the ones that supported the country's development, depended on one thing: the enriched uranium that the United States sold to them. Washington sent a clear message through its diplomatic channels. If the Islero project continued, the nuclear fuel supply would be cut off. Overnight. America didn't need to send a single soldier. They just had to turn off Spain's lights. The second move was diplomatic. The new democratic Spain had one dream: to join Europe, to join the European Economic Community, to become part of NATO, to leave behind 40 years of isolation. And here Kissinger played his trump card. The message to the young Spanish government was brutally simple: you can have the bomb or you can have Europe. You can't have both. Meanwhile, in Spain, everything had changed. Franco had died. Admiral Carrero Blanco, its main driving force, was no longer there. And in the Moncloa Palace sat a man with different priorities: Adolfo Suárez. For Suárez and for the king, the atomic bomb was a poisoned legacy from the previous regime. A sleeping monster in the basement of a newborn democracy. His obsession was not military deterrence, but national reconciliation, economic stability, and international recognition. The Islero project, which for Francisco Franco was a life insurance policy, was for Adolfo Suárez a ticking time bomb that threatened to blow up Spain's future. A silent battle broke out within the state itself. Part of the army and the old Francoist guard saw giving up the bomb as a betrayal, as an unacceptable surrender. For them, it was the only guarantee that Spain would be respected again. But for the new democratic government, it was the last obstacle that separated them from the free world. Adolfo Suárez had the dossier on his desk. In its pages, Franco's dream of power. And on the other end of the phone line, the promise of a European and democratic future, but at the cost of giving it up. The final decision rested on a single man, and it wasn't a choice about a weapon. It was a choice about the soul of Spain, the bomb or democracy. Spain or Europe? Spain was looking into its future, and in the hands of its president rested the fate of an entire nation. In the Moncloa office, there was no cry of victory, nor a declaration of war. There was the heavy silence of a historic renunciation. Adolfo Suárez made his decision. He chose Europe. The Islero project was not canceled with a big announcement. It gradually faded away like a flame deprived of oxygen. The orders stopped coming. The budgets were frozen. The national priority was no longer plutonium. It was democracy. In 1981, the Spanish government signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but did not ratify it immediately. It kept one last card up its sleeve, a calculated ambiguity, while the young democracy was still struggling to survive. The coup de grace, the definitive end, would come years later. With the government of Felipe González and Spain's entry into the European Economic Community, the atomic dream no longer had a place. In 1987, Spain finally ratified the treaty. It was the official end. Guillermo Velarde, the father of the project, was ordered to destroy all the documents, all the calculations, all the evidence of the project. He had to erase it from history. Velarde obeyed. He burned the reports. But in a final act of defiance, or perhaps a scientist's pride, he kept a copy of the essential calculations. The master plan for the Spanish atomic bomb, not to build it, but so that no one would forget that for a time it was possible, so that there would be proof that Spain had the power of the atom. It was within its reach. The ghost of the Spanish bomb now rests in a safe place, a secret within another secret. And that's how the story ends. Or does the legend begin? The Islero project was not a failure. It was, in fact, a resounding success. It showed that Spain had the scientific capability, the political will, and the industrial talent to enter the most exclusive club on the planet. It wasn't a delusion of grandeur. It was a real possibility. This forces us to ask the forbidden question. The question of, what if? Imagine for a moment a Spain with the bomb. Would our history with Gibraltar have changed? Our power dynamic with Morocco or with the rest of Europe? Would they have taken us seriously? Or would we have become a pariah nation, a sort of North Korea in the Mediterranean? We'll never know. The story of Project Islero is not the chronicle of what Spain lost. It's the story of what it chose to be. It was the sacrifice of military ambition on the altar of the transition. Spain gave up the most powerful weapon on earth in order to build something that, at that time, was much more important: a stable democracy. It was a choice, perhaps the most difficult and momentous one in our contemporary history. The bomb that never exploded allowed the Spain we know today to be born. And the question that lingers in the air half a century later is still the same. Did we sacrifice a power that was rightfully ours, or was it the necessary price to become who we are today?